Is there a frequency or key for the Om? Okay, that's a great question, because that allows me to address a few different things, including perhaps the very first concept of everything is vibration. And when we deal with sound, sound is measured in something called frequencies, and that is, it's measured in how many cycles per second an object will vibrate. And we hear from around 16 of these vibrations, very low, deep sounds, to around 16,000. Children can hear upwards of 20,000 cycles a second. And dolphins can hear upwards of 180,000 cycles a second. So that's more than 10 times. They can actually hear and project frequencies upwards of 180,000 cycles a second. So just because we can't hear something doesn't mean that there isn't a sound being created. That's number one. But number two, there is a lot of really interest these days in sound and in frequency, to such a degree that a lot of people are making claims about different things having different frequencies, including the Om. I remember a few years ago, a doctor called me, and he was telling me that he worked with tuning forks. And I said, "What tuning fork?" And he said, "I work with the Om tuning fork." I said, "Oh, great." I said, "Well, you know, there is no frequency for the Om." And he said, "What do you mean?" And I went, Om, 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 Om. And did Om in about a number of different notes, frequencies, or keys. And I said, if there were a specific frequency for Om, then I wouldn't have been able to make those sounds. And he says, "Well, why do they call it the Om tuning fork?" I said, "It is fabulous marketing." And it is. I mean, who wouldn't want to have an Om tuning fork? And here, this isn't exactly it, but it sounds something like this. I don't even know if you can hear that, and that's okay. But it doesn't matter. It's kind of a deep sound, but as you can see, we can make Om in any key. And the fact that there are people who are perceiving that there is a key or a frequency or a keynote to the Om, well, it just doesn't make sense. And I would like to ask anybody, perhaps part of my teaching is for us to be fluid and understand that, perhaps you have an Om tuning fork, or you've been listening, you've bought your Om. I have a recording that I did called Ultimate Om. It's great. It's got actually tons of different frequencies in it. Doesn't matter if you like it, but just be open to the concept that the Om actually is a mantra. It's a mantra from it's a Sanskrit mantra from the Hindu tradition. And in fact, it is said to be, okay, this is from the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali's. Patanjali it's probably 3,000 to 4,000 years old. And shall we say, he was the great purveyor of yoga. And this is Sutra 1.27. It says the original sound of creation was pranava, or pranava, the humming of prana, humming. They had to give it a name, so they called it Om. So the Om, and if you think about it, it's Om. So the Om is so it's a mantra, but it's not a frequency. And it's really important, when we're dealing with sound, to understand that a mantra is not a frequency. A mantra really is a sacred word. In fact, the word mantra literally translates as the thoughts that liberate from samsara, because mantras are said to be words that free us from the limitations of the phenomenal world. So there we have a sound, if you like, which is a word, but it is not, if you like, limited to a particular frequency. And I ask all of you, as we become more and more fluid, for us not to be really constricted about what sound, about sounds. Work with what works with you, for sure. And if something feels good, and if you want to believe, and we're going to talk about this much more in another satsang, if you want to believe that there is a frequency of Om, then bless you. That's okay if that is in your belief system. But I'm going to suggest that our belief systems really are maybe one of the major phenomena that manifests as reality. Once again, the idea of frequency plus intent equals healing. Frequency plus intent. So we have whatever the frequency is, we were doing the Om, and each of us had our own frequency for when we made that Om. We made it, if I was doing the Tibetan deep voice, it's a very different frequency than the but still on a level, the intentionality of it was very, very similar. So, on this day of solstice of greatest light, let us remember that we basically want to be conscious about our light and our love through sound, conscious about what we do with our sound, and remember to keep lots of light and love through sound in your lives. Bye-bye now.